This is the Committee on Government Operations, Public Safety, Public Service. This is Thursday, November 17, 2016. We're at 6 p.m. I have Councilor McKinnon.
Here.
I have Councilor Capone.
Here.
I have Councilor Del Shula.
Here.
I have Councilor McLaughlin. Is he here?
No.
We have 3 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand and salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first piece of business is a resolution up by Leo McKinnon that the Fire Police Civil Service invited Human Resource Director Michael Vetrano to have a communication.
Is this it?
No, it's a communication to Mike. It says he's not.
Okay. Should we just hold it over to the next meeting?
It's up to the members.
We have a release of balloons. It's a preamble, but the sponsor is not here tonight, so,
No, this is item number 1.
oh,
Yeah.
do we have a response from item number 1?
Michael Vetrano will not be.
Oh, okay. Due to a work commitment.
Yes. Okay.
The director will not be in attendance tonight, so we'll hold this over, if you could make a motion.
Second that?
Motion made and seconded to hold this item over to the next government ops meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. You have done so.
Right, item number 2, this order by Councilors McKinnon and Matusky, candidates for the election process, invited the city clerk and election commission.
Grant further time on this? Motion made and seconded to grant further time. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, item number 3, this is a resolution up by Councilors Capone and McLaughlin, the environmental impact of plastics. The balloon ordinance is in front of you.
And just a quick question. This is a preamble to this. This is what we have in front of us, preamble. This will be the ordinance. Okay. Yep. Councilman McLaughlin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I know that we have submitted this piece in thanks to City Clerk Matarazzo and Assistant City Clerk Sergio Canilio for helping me put this together. I'm not sure if we want to grant further time on this so that we can all take a look at this beyond tonight and ask some further questions. I know that the individual that had been heavily involved in this was unable to be here tonight due to a previous commitment. So I'd like to maybe
Grant further time.
grant further time. I don't know if any of my
What do
colleagues
we-
have. What's that?
Get it a month ago.
Mr. Chairman, this is the first time I'm looking at it, though, tonight.
Councilman Capone?
This is the first time I'm looking at it tonight.
This is,
Yeah, I was under the understanding last time that this was before us was I was going to submit something to the city clerk's office to be able to actually draw up this rough draft, which I
Was-
thought
was,
was the
um,
last step.
a
unless-
question from the chair. On this, right, was this actually given to the city clerk?
It was a, is the city clerk in the audience?
He is not.
No. Okay. It was a draft similar to this that was issued to the city clerk, and the city clerk and assistant city clerk helped me clean it up a little bit and change some of the wording and
Is this the finished product or no?
came out of it. Well, it was something that I wanted to present to my colleagues tonight to take a look at it. And obviously, everything is open for discussion or open for
Sure.
change or suggestions or language, you know.
Well, seeing that Councilor Capone has just, he just seen it tonight,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendation? Do you want us to take a look at it, or what do you want to do with it here? It's up to you.
If any of my colleagues have a question, but I think Council Council
If
Del
it-
Sol may.
Yeah, but they're just, I mean,
I just have
he just
questions.
seen it for tonight.
Right, I just
Councilman
have
Delasola.
questions like, does any other cities have this? You know, how do we stop it? I mean, if we have a function, let's say a road race, we don't release the balloons because it's in our ordinance, that's fine. I mean, it's a great piece. I didn't realize the damage it does do until you see the pictures that, Katie Rogers, who presented this to us, showed us pictures of the damage it does to wildlife and stuff. It's up to the sponsors if they want to do further time on this to get
Mr. Chairman, I
information.
can answer. Sure.
Well, due to the fact that some of the, council, due to the fact that some of the committee members have not seen this until tonight, for whatever reason it may be, I know it was put before us, it was supposed to be given to us, what was that, 10:20? And now, we're just seeing it now, so what's your pleasure on it right now?
I would like to just answer Council Del Sol's question, which is,
Sure.
do any other cities or towns have
Sure,
an
Flo.
ordinance of this sort in effect?
Mhm.
There are about a half dozen cities and towns throughout Massachusetts that
Who are
has
they? What are they?
implemented this. The place that I was actually able to take this language from, that was the original rough draft, actually came out of Nantucket. The island in Nantucket has a much stronger ban on plastics and balloons and so forth. I was able to take some of their language and also Martha's Vineyard and incorporate some of both in what I presented to the city clerk, and then the city clerk was able to help me
Yeah.
kind of change some of the language that would apply to more of our city charter rules and regulations. But that's where I got the original
So
rough draft from.
there's probably about a half dozen to a dozen cities and
Yes,
towns?
there's
Okay.
about a half dozen to a dozen cities across Massachusetts that has done this, and I know there are several others that are in the process right now of banning plastics and doing other initiatives for environmental protection across Massachusetts. I think Somerville's doing something right now with the shopping bags in their
Sure.
grocery stores, and
Was that in Somerville?
in Somerville, and I think Cambridge as well. So there
Yeah.
are some surrounding communities
They're starting
that
now.
are starting to do other initiatives.
They're going paper.
They go on,
Yeah.
they go on paper. So that's where this came from. I actually took it off of the town of Nantucket's website.
Seeing the fact that Councilman Capone, as a courtesy,
Yeah,
to
absolutely. No,
Councilman Capone,
absolutely.
we should
I have no problem
probably,
whatsoever of laying this over for
why don't we
1
grant
month.
further time to next meeting, and then we can all take a look at it? Would
Yes.
that be feasible?
Sure, fine with me.
Councilman Delasola?
Just so that Councilman McLaughlin know, I'm gonna look into Cambridge and Somerville. I'm there every day working. Go to City Hall and see if the rulings on the plastic bags that which is now in effect, if that carries over to the balloons, if not, just to see what surrounding cities have that are closer to us. and
Sure.
I'll get the
See what type,
information.
I mean, just so that we can get a comparison.
And
from
I'll
both.
also create the list of a half dozen or dozen cities that also have this in place.
Just bring them to the
That
next.
I know off the top of my head, to be honest. I'm sorry that I don't
Okay,
remember all of them.
That's fine.
But I will definitely issue that for the next meeting and be ready to take action on this and to move this forward at the next meeting. So I apologize to our clerk committees, but if I can request 1 more month's delay on this, we'll be ready to move
Motion
forward.
made and seconded to grant further time.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? You have done so.
Item number 4, this is a resolution offered by Councilors McKinnon. First Baptist Church, Representative Pierre, relative to the parking and traffic flow on Church and Webster Street.
Mr. Chairman, through you to, can we invite up Bill O'Rourke and maybe Irene and Paul Cardillo from
Yeah,
the
if we could have all
First Baptist Church?
parties involved, please. If you could just state your names for the record and titles.
Thanks.
Paul Cadillo, 25 Rosedale Ave, treasurer of First Baptist Church.
Thank you.
Irene Cadello, First Baptist Church.
Thank you.
Bill O'Rourke, Director of Engineering.
Thank you. Where are we on this right now, Mr. O'Rourke?
So we last met on October 20th regarding the traffic issue, and I put a call in on the 21st, the next day. We met the following Wednesday, October 26th, in the field, did a walkthrough. I had a proposal submitted to me November 4th. The revised proposal was submitted November 8th, and we are currently in the process of putting all signatures necessary on the contract to have a fully executed contract.
And,
At this time, we are not allowed to give a notice to proceed until we have a fully executed contract.
Who did you meet with out in the field? If you,
Oh, I just met with the consultant.
okay, so it was you and the consultant out in the field?
Right,
They took a look at the area that was affected?
that's right.
Okay. And then, was there any further discussion than that, or no? Just waiting for the contract to be signed?
That's right.
When will that be happening?
Hopefully, McMahon signed the contract today. They put it in the mail back to us, and we'll have the opportunity to get all signatures on it next week.
So, within a week,
Let's hope.
probably a week's time?
Yep.
Okay. So we should have something in play before December, hopefully?
We will have an executed contract before December.
What's gonna be
As
happening?
far as results, I do not know the results.
Councilman Delasola.
Good evening. I just can't believe, and nothing against you, Mr. O'Rourke, that how long this has taken, that we went out there and, was there any conversation of how they thought it should be?
Yes.
Could you tell us what their ideas were?
We're going to take a look at 4 alternatives. Those alternatives are the following. The original intersection layout prior to the summer of 2015, Church Street passed through to Linden Street. Second alternative,
What was data on that?
I believe it's prior to the summer of 2015.
2015, summer. Okay.
Excuse me, before you go any further, can we just explain what you mean by that?
That is traffic traveling on Church Street all the way up to Linden Street, not being forced to take a right up to Webster to make a decision to take a left or a right on Webster. That's the
how it was.
original configuration.
Okay.
Second alternative, we're going to look at the current conditions, including a 90-degree intersection onto Webster Street. Current conditions.
When was that implemented?
I'd have to say following the summer of 2015. Third alternative, geometric modifications to the Church Street, Webster Street at Linden Street intersection, including reconfiguration of the existing raised island to remove the Church Street leg from Linden Street and Webster Street intersection.
So that's the extent of the
This
extent of the,
alternative will remove the pass-through
okay,
from Church Street all the way to Linden Street. We will physically block that off with curbing.
okay.
And the fourth alternative is to reverse direction of one-way travel in its entirety on Webster and Church Streets.
So you're saying Webster would go from the Broadway to City Hall?
Webster would go from
Broadway to
Broadway
Linden.
past City Hall to Linden. And if you wanted to come back to Broadway, you take a left at the island and come back Church. So it's one way clockwise now. It'd be one way counterclockwise. Did I say that correctly? Let me think. Clockwise, and we'll look at making it counterclockwise. That's correct.
Councilman, Delasola, you,
I wish we had a diagram on these 4 proposals that, so we can maybe actually see what's gonna happen.
We will have diagrams when we have a full submittal of their product. That's part of the design or the study.
you done, Council?
Okay, we have an engineer that could, someone that could draw this up for us and give it to us at our next meeting, what you told us, instead of waiting just a
That's a
temporary-
possibility. Absolutely, that's a
Just so we can see,
possibility.
we know what we're talking about.
Right.
The 4 different steps we're thinking of doing. They have to be, you know, professional, but
I
something
can
that
ask
we
them to
can-
do that first thing and get that to me.
I think you do it right in the computer.
They will.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Why don't you have them email it to us all on this committee?
Yeah, you do
Right,
that, email it
right.
to all the council?
I can do that,
And-
sure. As part of their work, they will be meeting with the Cardellos here to get their, I'll read it verbatim. Attend one meeting with the Cambridge Hispanic SDA Church to obtain feedback of their firsthand experience with operations of the intersection and discuss potential improvements. Did they, perhaps they put it wrong in the contract, I apologize.
No, I don't know who that church is.
I apologize.
No, that's okay, because they don't exist at first.
They know who you are, and they will be contacting you two directly to sit down with you.
Let's go. Okay.
In addition, once we have a final product, I have asked them to come before this council to explain and answer all questions.
Just from the chair, what was the cost of that? Again?
$9,700,
97?
$9,700.
Thank you for
Less
that.
than the suggested 15.
Yep. Councilman McLaughlin.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. O'Rourke. Mr. O'Rourke, good evening.
Good evening.
Counterclockwise, Broadway, Webster, you'll be able to take a sharp left turn to now come onto Church Street at the bottom of Linden. Is that what you're saying? So there'll be like a swing to the left, which would make you go back out to Church Street, which would bring you back to Broadway.
No, you would not go all the way out to Linden Street. You'd take the left,
Oh, here.
where traffic is swinging up today to
Yep.
Webster Street.
And then the rest of that would stay the same, Mr. O'Rourke? So where the swing is now at the Poundland House, where you can take the swing now at the Poundland House, you swing, go left and come back out to Broadway, past the Devon School.
You'd be simply reversing direction of both Church and Webster.
Yep,
Right now, we have two directional on Webster.
yes.
From the island to Linden, we would not have that.
What would happen with the rest of the V shape, I would say, the church, like Webster and Church Street, that'd be on the island?
Perhaps there will be some modification for curbing to make it more conducive to vehicular traffic. I don't have the answer to that yet.
Okay, because, and again, I apologize again, I don't have a drawing, but if you come Broadway and you take a left onto Webster, say, and you pass the City Hall, and you go to take your turn around basically at the Poundland House in front of the Prescott House.
Yep.
To come back down Church Street.
Correct?
You can come Webster Street, before you take that turn to go down Church, you'd be able to go straight to come out to Linden Street as well.
Correct.
And then if you're on Linden, you can take a right onto Church Street at that point still? If I'm coming up
Yes.
northbound on
Yes.
Linden,
That would be open,
I can
correct.
take a right and go into Church Street that way.
If you went Linden Street and took a right on to Church Street,
Yes,
you could continue all the way down to Broadway.
down to Broadway. Okay, so that is, what is the, maybe you don't know, but what is the one out of the 4 concepts here that you guys are thinking may work best or play best in this
I
kind
can't
of
answer that
area?
at this time. That's up to the professional consultant. We've chatted about it, but let's let them, give them time to think it through, put it on paper for us, and come before us.
What do you think is the best of the 4
I don't want
plans?
to offer that right now. I don't want to get into suggesting what I think. I'm a transportation engineer. I've taken classes. I've had some experience in it, but they're the experts. They do it every day. In their office, they have about 20 professional engineers strictly specifying in transportation and traffic, let them come to us and tell them what they suggest.
No, and I understand that, and I respect that, but you obviously see this area more on a daily basis, multitude of times when you leave, come and go from City Hall. So you see the flow of traffic every day, multitude of times as you come and go from City Hall. When they come back to us and say, Plan B is what we're thinking, what is going to be your comeback to them that you think A or B is going to work better?
I don't have the answer to that.
Out of 4 plans, you can't tell me what you think is the best.
I don't
plan
have the
as-
answer to that.
As our city engineer.
I do not have the answer to that. I'm sorry, I can't offer that.
When will you have the answer to that, in your
What?
opinion?
Sorry?
When will you have a verdict, a decision that you can
We
suggest?
have a meeting planned with the consultant. Once they've done sufficient study of the 4 alternatives, we will sit around the table, we will discuss at that time all of their ideas, all of our ideas, and we'll come to a conclusion. And the package will be put together, and we'll bring it to you, and we'll tell you the recommended alternative.
And again, I respect that, but you just said that you'll share your ideas with them at that point. Are you willing to share your ideas with us
I'm
and
not
the
willing
city
to share
council
those ideas.
before that meeting?
Mr.
occurs?
Chairman, what's your thoughts on this? I don't
you-
want to overstep the professional consultant's
That's.
objective. Let
I
them
understand-
handle
I
that,
understand where you're
and I
going
can
with
see
it.
what they suggest, and then I can either offer my
So
comments
you can give
at
a
the time.
legitimate answer back.
Absolutely.
I understand. Will you yield right now, because I think the question that you're asking, Councilman Capone will ask, so,
I'll yield, but I'm gonna come back to it.
you got it. Councilman Capone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Rock. Well, I mean, just to touch on that real quickly, I would think what you're saying is we're hiring outside professionals for a reason. If we had all the answers in-house, we wouldn't have to do that. We just do it. You might be raising at that meeting what your concerns are, what the neighbors' concerns are, what the city's concerns are. But right now, to pick one of 4 solutions, they might be coming up with pros and cons that we're not thinking about. So it is unfair to put you in a position to say which of these do you think is the best to do, because they might bring some other viewpoint that collectively we're not thinking of. I know which one I like, but again, I might not be hearing pros and cons of the other alternatives that I haven't thought about before. So I just raised that to maybe satisfy my colleague. My question is, have you dealt with this group before, this consulting company?
Yes, they are currently on board with our planning department to do the peer review of the wind traffic studies around the casino.
Okay.
They are a talented group. Planning department has had good feedback from their efforts, and I recognize those.
Okay, great. I mean, it doesn't seem to me, again, being a layperson within this, this field, it doesn't seem like it's a huge project for a company like them to kind of look at it. They're already going to know, what would work, what wouldn't work, bring to our attention pros and cons. What do you guess, if you can, the time frame once the contract's signed and we get things up and running, the turnaround time for them to be able to present the different options and their viewpoint on those?
My guess would be about 30 days,
Okay.
if not sooner. It depends upon their workload.
Yeah.
But they have already thought through these alternatives. They're asking me for the notice to proceed. I can't offer it yet.
Yep.
So they're thinking about it, but they haven't put pen to paper just yet.
Right, okay. And I wanted to get a sense of time frame because, as you know, we're going into the winter months, we're gonna have inclement weather, there's gonna be all kinds of issues. We really wanna try to jump on as quick as possible. So I think when we were here last, you were hopeful that by the end of December, we might be able to get everything. A lot of that's out of your hands, I understand.
Yes.
Paperwork going back and forth, signatures and contracts, unfortunately, that delays things. But once all that's up and running, hopefully, within the 30, that would fall within December, maybe a hair over that, but that was my concern. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Yield back to Councilman McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Rourke.
Mhm.
McMahon is the consultant that we've hired, is that correct?
That's correct.
So there's no, obviously at this point, no contractor on board, there's no design plan, it's just a conceptual, plan of design at this point. So when are we looking at a time frame of going out to do this work? You think early spring, realistically? Because if we come back with the design in January, say, early January, right after the first of the year.
Right.
You're gonna get into snow, you're gonna get into winter months, you're gonna get into weather conditions that are beyond anybody's control, until March, maybe, middle to end of March. So will we be ready to go on April 1st, beginning of April?
I can't answer that. I don't control the money. I have been given the authority to spend $9,700 for this initial study to look at 4 alternatives. I will do that. I will come before you. I will deliver the product. Beyond that, if there is design and construction necessary, I cannot answer at this time if we have the money to proceed with that.
So this $90 to $700 that we're spending, we may be spending for no reason at all because.
No, that's not the case. The
Well, if we
$9,700 will determine a suggested alternative.
At best.
And then at that time, we will begin planning for a design and construction project if necessary.
Well, something's
I
necessary.
can't
you
tell
know.
you how much the design and the construction project will cost. We don't have the alternative. It could be it could be very, very innocuous. Some striping, changing of some signs, elimination of a couple parking spots, or we could be getting into expensive curbing work and pavement work and so on. I don't have the answer to that.
From the chair, Counselor, not over to, what I'm thinking is, we need this study first before we can actually move
That is
forward.
correct.
Once we have that study, then we can probably put a price tag on it, so, and that's probably the way we're gonna have to go with it, but, I'm glad to see that, at least it will be within the next, possibly sooner than the next 30 days, that it's gonna actually move forward, so that they can get some relief down there, you know, so, Councilman McLaughlin, you still have the floor.
I mean, I could sit here and debate this all night with you, to be truthful with you, right? What can we do over the next 30 days to start to expedite the process so that when design comes out, that we are moving the ball forward and we're not just sitting for anything on the city side that we can do while the design is out?
We've already talked about it. They're going to put the sketches together for us, and I will distribute those, and we can start thinking about it ourselves in anticipation of their product.
Okay, so lay this on the table for 1 month.
Well, I have more.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I yield the floor to my colleagues.
Councilman Delasola?
Just a comment, and one of you could probably answer it. Would it be too chaotic if we had Church Street and Webster one way from Broadway to Linden? So if you come Linden, you have no right turn at all.
I apologize. Ask the question again. Would it be too
Linden's-
chaotic?
You have
What?
Webster Street and Church is a one-way from Broadway to Linden only. So you come up Linden, there's no right turn, so there'd never be a head-on collisions. That's all we're worried about.
I don't think that's going to be an option to have no right turn on Linden onto Church. That will be an option. That was not discussed in the proposal, and professional traffic engineers would never suggest that.
Why is that? Well, I'm trying to
You
prevent
yield-
an accident here. I'm saying if you went up Linden, you want to get to City Hall, you come up Broadway, now you can go on Webster, right to City Hall.
You wouldn't be able to do that if they flipped the directions. You would have to turn down Church, and there would be parking along Church to go into the back door of City Hall. But if you wanted to come into the parking lot, you'd have to go all the way down Church, take a left on Broadway, take a
No.
left on Webster to come
Both
to the
streets are
parking
the
lot.
same way.
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. No,
That's what I'm suggesting.
no, whoa. That's not part of the study. That was not part of the
But-
study. Now, we can talk about that now if you'd like. Maybe we can add it, give them an amendment, but you would suggest,
What? Explain.
you would suggest one-way direction from Broadway to Linden of both Webster and Church?
Yes. And no right turn from Linden to Webster. Or Linden to Church.
I haven't considered that, and I had not included that in proposal, and the consultant, as we were tossing around ideas, did not present that idea to me.
But aren't we, maybe I'm wrong here, we're trying to, I hope I'm not saying it wrong, we're trying to resolve the problem. So if we have an idea that I think it will work, if they don't have that idea, we're not gonna suggest it?
I think the reason why they didn't suggest it was because it may have not have been a prudent suggestion. I apologize.
Okay.
But,
I'm just throwing out their
it
idea
didn't,
out
it
there.
didn't strike any of us in the meeting as we were developing this scope of work to suggest the same direction towards Linden Street. It just didn't.
So we just,
Maybe we get the alternatives, we talk about them, and maybe you raise the issue at that time when they're here presenting the results, and we can talk about it then.
okay, fair enough.
Councilman
you.
Capone? Okay, you're all set. Councilman McLaughlin, one last question here, because I want to hear from the...
I want to hear
the
from
abutters.
Irina Paul as well. My only question to you, Mr. You just said that this idea wasn't prudent or that it hadn't come up in conversation. But just a few minutes ago, you told me that you didn't really have any ideas at this point of yourself of what you thought would work. So if we're suggesting something, I would like you to bring it back to the designer and ask him to take a look at it, because there's obviously no concrete idea of what's going to work on the city's behalf from your words tonight. So hopefully you'll bring Council Del Sol's idea to them, or at least take a look at if we did one way out to Linden, one way back into Broadway with no turnaround. So if you made Broadway to Linden on Church side, excuse me, and then you made Linden to Broadway on Webster, and you just made one, either one of those two ideas without having this turnaround on.
I can talk to them and ask them to put a paragraph in the report suggesting the counselor's idea of one way, both streets to Linden. I can do that, probably at no additional cost to the city. What is your suggestion?
Looking at Council Del Sol's idea, or just simply making one side of it from Broadway to Linden and the other side from Linden back out to Broadway with no turnaround. So your one way is north and one way is south. Do you know what I mean? And
I'm
then
sorry I don't, but we can talk afterwards and figure it out exactly what you
Okay.
mean. And I can put it in an email to the consultant.
Yep.
And I can ask them to address that as part of this report.
That'd be great. I'd appreciate that. Thank
No
you.
problem.
Are you all set, Counselor? All right. I'd like to open it up now to the church.
Hi, everybody. I just want to give you a couple updates. Last Friday, when I went back to the church, some truck must have started to go down the one-way from Broadway and realized that it's a one-way and backed up into the fence at the corner of the drive. That's the first physical accident that I've seen. Do you know what I'm saying? Because when you're on Broadway and you're going down Church, you don't see the stop sign. It happens all the time. I tell you, that Capital Waste is aiming for me. So this was definitely a Friday. And so they must have realized and backed up. And I know that it was someone that backed up because you can tell by the angle of the fence. So that's number one. Just wanted to highlight that. When you're on Broadway and you come down Church, people now just roll to the island. They don't slow down. I know because I'm there all the time, and I know it's a lot of people that work at City Hall too, because, you're just rolling along. And maybe one suggestion in the interim, because it seems like this is gonna be another year, put a stop sign, if you're gonna keep that one way, right there before you roll into the island. And then people can hesitate and stop and see the one-way and the chevrons and all the painted things and say, hey, one way, you can't go that way in Church, and this way they won't make a mistake again. They won't crash into the fence or a child. That might help. That's my second suggestion. And when you're on Broadway and you're coming up and you see that sign at the corner of Broadway and Church, and it says, one-way church. Now that I have the food pantry, we service all North Shore. I got people coming from Lynn, from Melrose. Last month, 200 families. They don't all live in Everett, so they don't know. So now I got people that see the one-way, right? They're from Lynn or Dorchester, wherever, and now I got people coming this way. There's gonna be a crash. By the grace of God, I do have a police officer on call right there, you know, Takata and signs, but this is all the things that I gotta worry about all the time. And the other thing is, this group, I'm just somebody that works in the church, this group that's coming out to design this for us, that came up with 4 suggestions. I say, I've been in the city 50 years. I've been at the church 23 years, 5 times a day. There's no one that has more experience on that street than we do. We should be ground zero with them, helping them to, all these little things that happen on the street. We know, we live it.
Excuse me from the chair. Mr. O'Rourke, they are going to meet with these people here,
That is correct. It's part of
Okay.
the contract.
and time frame should be within the 30 days, correct?
Absolutely.
All right. They will
But
be
in the
meeting.
interim, though, if there was a stop sign where you make that roll into the island, that will help. That will help people will hesitate, that 3 seconds to see the stop sign, not to go down my, hit me when I'm coming up church that way. The food pantry is gonna grow. I get deliveries, like, again, I'm repeating myself. BJ's, Greater Food Bank,
Just for informational purposes, if it goes through traffic for a stop sign to be put there, it could take up to 30 days anyway, because it goes to that meeting.
I just think that would help.
No, that's a good suggestion. We hear you.
Help me then.
We really hear you. So it's just a process that I'm gonna explain to you what it is, and that's what it would probably take for that to go to traffic, So why don't we try to suggest that you meet with these individuals that is going to be the consultants on this? And you could probably, at that point, Mr. O'Rourke, correct me if I'm wrong, give some type of direction to them that you see, and input that you see, and then they can go from there on these 4 to 5 proposals. Agreed? I would think that would probably be a good step for you, actually, to meet with these people, just to actually have your input, because we hear you, we know that your input's valuable because you're on ground zero there, okay? And we're trying to help, and this is the direction that we have to go now. So if it takes less than 30 days, that would be a great thing. But we can anticipate a stop sign or something like that, but if we don't need it, and this is gonna be end result, we could probably put something in play for a stop sign until that's there. One of these 4 or 5 proposals. Does that sound feasible right now?
Well, yeah, sounds like good to have it, because there's a safety issue there. I would suggest coming out this Sunday. You're gonna see the traffic, you're gonna see the chaos. If you live in Everett, come out and see, and at the same time, you can help give out turkeys, so.
Thank you for that. Do you have anything, sir? Okay. You're all set now?
I'm good.
Okay. One last question. I'm gonna wrap it up.
I just have a question, the Irene Paul. Out of the 4 plans, I'm sure you can't, but do you think any of the 4 sound feasible to you guys? I'm sorry, I thought you asked me a question.
I like going back to the original, one way for Broadway, the way it was.
Yep.
And then, that's to say, the island's already designed that way. $97,000 that you wasted just to have someone to come out and tell you, go back to 9,700?
Yeah.
To go back to the way it was, but that's a kind of common sense. Maybe you have to do a little extension on the island, and maybe put like a blinking yellow light there, but that's always worked before. The island's been there since what, 1940?
Longer than me. Sure.
Common sense, why, if it's not broken, why fix it? No one has ever answered why they changed it in the first place.
It was touched in the first place, right, and that was
No one's been
previous to
accountable.
Mr. O'Rourke, so
Can't get the name.
he can't be held accountable for that.
Right.
Mr. O'Rourke, my only question to you is is there any short-term solutions that you think we can do? So if at best case scenario, we're looking at early spring to be able to really pin down a solution to this, is there anything we can do between now and early spring? You know, the snow's coming, winter's coming. Is there any short-term solutions that we can make that helps?
Council,
this
from
process?
from the chair, we're gonna put in a separate resolution coming out of here probably for that stop sign anyway, as
No,
part
I
of it.
agree, and that's why I asked Mr. O'Rourke his idea, if there's anything else that we should add to that, because I assume
Sure.
that we would be putting a separate,
It has to go in resolution form for the
Resolution.
next meeting.
yep, and I'm sure, and that's why I want just
Or
Mr.
order
O'Rourke
form.
to ask if there's anything that we should additionally add to that other than the light, or the
Mr.
stop sign,
O'Rourke?
excuse me.
Do you see anything additional than the stop sign?
That we can do short-term, Mr. O'Rourke, that helps.
I do not. We've hired a professional traffic engineer to take a look at this. Anything that I would suggest may be outside the bounds of a professional traffic engineer. I'd be very reluctant to suggest anything.
Okay.
So
We're gonna end
what
up
it
with
would
that.
come down to is that stop sign for temporary relief, then the input from the council that he's seeking, and then we can go further action on that once he receives his documentation on it. Okay? So we'll grant further time for this, anticipating a report from the, yeah, January, Johnny, or December? It's-
I guess we'd have to, because of the holiday and everything, schedule that for January with the understanding that if information becomes available sooner, I'm sure the city engineer would get it to us. There'd be some sort of a informal update I'm probably sure that we could get before the end of December. And then maybe the formal results would be available in January.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So we'll lay it over to the first meeting in January. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it, you have done so.
Excuse me, customary thanks.
Excuse me, customary
Thank you for
thanks,
coming
thank you
tonight.
for appearing. And also, when we get the report, we'll try to get it to the church as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item number 5. This is a resolution by Council Simonelli to respectfully request the mayor update the council on talks with Uber.
Could we have the representatives from the mayor's office as well as state representative and state senator, along with Councilman Simonelli? I'll read this first, Johnny. And this is from this is on this piece right here? Okay. If you could just state your names and titles, gentlemen. Just make sure the mic's on. Sim? Just make it on, sure. Just state your names and titles, please, for the record.
Oh, Shane Simonelli, 40 Winslow Street.
Thank you.
Kevin O'Donnell, Chief of Staff.
Thank you.
Sal DiDomenico, State Senator.
Thank you.
Joe McConigal, State Rep.
Sorry for the long wait, gentlemen. We had a very good talk on another discussion, so sorry to keep you tonight. I want to read something from our city solicitor first. It is dated from May 25th, 2016, from Colleen Mahir. The administration has been asked to provide an update regarding its talks with Uber since the last committee meeting, where the administration updated the committee with regard to its meeting with Uber, where a lengthy discussion occurred regarding its operations. The administration is tracking the progress from the state on its legislative initiatives. That's what I believe you two gentlemen are here tonight for. And let's see here. how the state will regulate transportation companies like Uber. As of today, November 17, 2016, there is no new update to provide. As soon as we receive any update on the state level, the mayor will be sure to provide that update to the city council. Thank you. Councilman Simonelli.
Great. Thank you all for coming here tonight. I think Councilor Simonelli just has a couple questions regarding both the safety of passengers when using transportation network services, but also what can be done at a state level and also at a city level to ensure that both taxis and TNCs are operating on the same playing field, if at all possible.
Councilman Simonelli, why don't we hear from the state delegation first, and they can bring us up to speed on.
It's better because there's no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
That work? Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. So with that being said, what is being done at the state level, and if you know what can be done at the the city level, to ensure that Uber and TNCs operate under the same rules and regulations? Just a pretty open-ended question, but.
Senator?
So the representative and I agree on the fact that we were hoping to have some local control over this legislation. Unfortunately, the Division of Department of Public Utilities is going to be overseeing all of the provisions of this law. So it was important to us to try to get local control so that the city solicitor and city council would have some sort of say in the implementation of this law, but that wasn't part of the final package that was presented to us. Right now, as it stands, there are several public safety measures in the bill, and I can list off a couple of them, and I know that that's the bulk of why everyone is so in tune on this legislation, because we understand what's happening, and we hear the stories out there, and we understand that all the things that we see in the news, we want to eliminate those and make sure that doesn't happen in the future. But as of today, and this bill was signed into law, so what is happening right now is it's literally at least 15 or 16 points that are included in this law, and I can give you a copy of it as well. But right now, it prohibits TNCs from hiring people who appear in the National Sex Offender Registry, having a conviction in the past 7 years for a sex offense, a violent crime, an OUI, hit and run, felony or a robbery, or a felony fraud, and having more than 4 traffic violations in the preceding 3-year period. So they're trying to crack down on the drivers and making sure they have safe drivers on the road. They have to undergo a 2-part background check. I have been in favor of fingerprinting. That it did not pass the Senate. That was an amendment that we put forward when this bill was being debated on the floor in the Senate, and it did not pass. So that was not part of the final package going over to the House or to the Conference Committee. The insurance piece is also critical, has a 2-tier insurance system requiring at least $1 million in coverage per occurrence, per vehicle, when a passenger is in the vehicle. Now, the discrepancy there that we did not agree with, a taxi has to have insurance all the time. And that was a sticking point for me, because now this is only insuring the car at the point of pickup for a passenger, not pre and post, and not all the time. So it was, in effect, not equal among all parties. I have been a vocal critic of TNCs. I have not agreed with many of my colleagues on this legislation. I was against the final bill, and I was not in favor of the Senate version as well. So it's, and I know Representative McGonigal and I don't want to speak for him, but I know that we both feel very badly for the taxi drivers and the taxi industry, because this was an unregulated operation for many years coming into our state, and they got a head start by ignoring our laws and cease and desist orders by the AG's office, and they still continue to operate as an entity, which they weren't supposed to. So they have somehow got into the mainstream, become legitimate now, and they have hurt people who've invested millions of dollars and their mortgages and their life savings in the taxi industry, and now these folks have come on the scene and really done a job with them. So, all things being equal, they are not regulated the same as taxis. They don't have the same rules that they have to follow for taxis. They don't have to have the same insurance as taxis. And and taxi drivers have to have background checks and fingerprinting. And these drivers do not have to have fingerprinting. So, the new innovation wave is what they call it. The TNC technology is what they hide under. But my feeling is you're taking someone from point A to point B. You are a transportation company. You have the same rules as a taxi should have. So that's my feeling on it, and I know that Representative McGonigal has some feelings on it as well. But we're here to tell you that there's not much change in the law, and unless we open it up again in the legislature to amend it, this is what we have going forward at this point.
Councilman McLaughlin. Do you have anything?
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Representative?
again, this industry is new. In the documentation that I've read and what I have, it's only been around for about 5 years in the Boston area. Okay, it services about 800,000 people a year, employs in this area, in these surrounding cities. About 3,500 people use this, so it's an extremely fast-growing business. I was disappointed that we didn't get fingerprinting in this legislation, because I think that was vital to it, for safety reasons. But with that said, at least we've got some laws in place. Because before, Mr. Chairman, it was like the wild, wild west out there, with people picking you up and not knowing who you are. So there are some new regulations in place, like the stickers, like the insurance, like the two-tier background checks that the Department of Public Utilities is going to create. The stumbling block right now in the legislation is that we've given that to the Department of Public Utilities to form a committee so that they can implement these laws. And that hasn't just happened as of yet. Our meeting with them, and I don't want to speak, but it hasn't, okay, that I know of. But they are putting it together. I do have a letter from DPU on that I'll give you a copy of. But when we met with them, we met with Uber, with the mayor and Kevin and the senator, and then we had a meeting with Angela O'Connell, the chairwoman of DPU. It's an overwhelming task because it's new to everybody. It's a lot larger than I thought. So I think once they get this committee together, you know, with the right people, and there's another whole aspect of it, where the House and the Senate are gonna have people as advisors on another whole committee, Senator. They're still in that infantile stage of doing this. But we're trying, at least, like I told you, it was the wild, wild west. I think we're getting somewhere with it. Would I like to revisit it in this new session coming up? Absolutely. But I don't know if it'll pass, especially the fingerprinting aspect of it, because I think that was important to us. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Chairman, I do want to applaud my colleagues in the Senate and in the House, because you both have taken this issue very serious and jumped on it immediately and understand the circumstances, how important it is, because you're right, Representative McGonigal, it was out of control. It was just anybody doing whatever they wanted, and there was no guidelines, there was no regulations and rules. And both of you guys really jumped on this immediately when it was brought to your attention and fought hard. And I know that it's been disappointing at some of the twist insurance, because some of the things you guys hoped for didn't actually happen, like fingerprinting, like some of the other things you wanted in legislation didn't happen, unfortunately. But it was not due to lack of you guys' effort or trying, because you guys have been fighting this good battle since day one. So I want to applaud both of you guys for taking this issue very serious, and it's a testament to both of you guys. I do have a couple of questions, if you guys can answer them just briefly. The committee that you spoke of, Representative or Senator, will there be representatives from the Senate and the House on that committee with the Department of Utilities, right? On the advisory committee, or no, there'll be a separate committee where you guys will be advising regulation and change and direction of how we go forward from here. If you don't know, it's okay.
I think the TNC is one that's involves them, where they're doing the hiring, and how they're gonna pay for that is through that 10 cents a mile, that 20 cents a mile that Uber's being charged. So there's a fee that Uber's being charged in these laws that'll help, pay, defer the cost of bringing that committee, the TNC committee in. Now, with that, Senator, help me with this one. There's another commission that the state is putting together, where I believe it's gonna be 2 senators, 2 representatives, member of the Transportation Committee.
Which you're a part of, right, Representative McGonigal?
I'm not on that committee. That has not been, picked
But
yet.
you're on transportation?
I'm on the
correct?
Transportation Committee.
So it potentially could be you,
And
potentially.
again, if the speaker had asked me to do that, absolutely, I would be on that commission.
It's great that you're in that spot to even be able to be considered
So
for that.
that
one
has
role.
not been picked yet, Senator.
Is not, no. So it's government officials and legislators will be on that commission. And honestly, people from both sides of the aisle as well.
That's right.
So it's not gonna be heavily weighted towards one side. There'll be people that are on both sides of the issue trying to come together to try to figure out some of these things, but they still have to work within the boundaries of the law that was passed.
When was
So-
the law signed into, do you know when the law was actually
Yeah, it
signed?
was this past summer.
It was this past year. So can it be reopened and re-looked at in the coming, session? Or-
Any law can be reopened, and you just file another amendment or an amendment to the law.
Okay.
Just a matter, and honestly, the only time something like that happens is if there's critical, mass of folks that are rising up and saying we wanna change something. It's difficult to change something literally 6 months after it's signed into law.
No, and
because
I agree.
the
That's why I
members-
asked when it was signed into law, because I know that it takes
Yeah.
time if it's not really crucial. But we have seen over the last 6 months in the city of Everett alone, some serious issues
Absolutely.
with these ride-sharing companies that have happened just here in the city of Everett. And, I'm sure there's others across Massachusetts, but in Everett, I think we had 2 of them in a very short span of time happen here in the city of Everett, which you guys are both been very involved in and aware of.
And
So I'm
the
wondering
mayor-
if that.
And the mayor reacted absolutely very quickly on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Had a meeting with Uber, I think, in a day, after that incident, 2 days, and
Yep.
I want to, for any one of us to get a hold of Uber, I never knew how to get a hold of them. To be honest,
No,
Mr.
I know.
Chairman, you have it on your app, there's no phone number, there's nothing.
Right. No, and
So-
kudos
so
to Mayor
now
Ray,
they're-
Representative.
they're
Kudos to
so
Mayor Di
transparent,
Maria for
yeah, and-
putting that meeting together.
Counselor, on that thought, now, is there a hierarchy that we don't know about, that we can actually get a hold of them?
There is, and after tonight's meeting, I'll leave it with the clerk.
Thank
So
you.
you can make copies of it and hand them out to them so that you can get a hold if you have an issue, okay, that the senator and I were privy to. I think that, Kevin, you.
That would be,
had,
I think that would be vital information that we
Sure.
need. Thank you.
And I don't wanna just pick on Uber, because even though they're the big one.
There's more coming.
There's more, and it's,
There's more branches out there now
Lyft-
and more
Lyft is another
future,
company,
right.
and.
Lyft.
And others, are starting to be formed, because now they see what they can work under and see if that model works for them to make a profit, so.
demand.
Uber is the big one, there's no doubt about that. But there are other companies out there that are looking at this, that are established and some coming online.
And Representative McGonigal is right when he says it's huge, because young people like my age bracket want to use
you're
car
driving.
sharing
Yeah, you're
services
driving.
and not driving themselves, whether they're going to Boston for an event or whatever the case might be. They'd rather pay the $10 or $11. My brother himself used it today to go to Somerville. It's much cheaper than driving, paying for parking, dealing with traffic. So these are becoming much more demand because they're much more easier to move around.
And I agree with you, and what I say to that, and I'm not, this is what I said on the floor of the Senate, they can afford to be less expensive and more agile and more.
Of course, absolutely.
And more, and they can move faster than others because they are less regulated than others.
Absolutely.
So the more regulation you have on the taxi industry, they can't be as fluid as these TNC companies can be. And they cannot, and they have to charge a certain amount to pay for the insurance on your car, which is a big, big lift, and pay for your medallions that you spend $1 million, upwards of maybe 600 to 700,000, and some $1 million per medallion that you're currently still paying on. So when you don't have those overhead costs, you can be less expensive, you can be
Yeah,
more
no,
fluid.
absolutely.
And that's the challenge that we have to face as a legislature, that we have to balance all that, protecting the folks that have put their money on the line and their life on the line and their mortgage on the line, against a new innovation company that is doing a lot of good things. You know, young people are using them, as Representative McGonigal said, at a faster pace than any other companies that are out there, transportation. But we also have to keep in mind that you can't open up a liquor store on the corner of Ferry Street and not be regulated when you have a guy opening up a liquor store in a storefront, and he's paying taxes and he's paying all kind of overhead costs as well. So you have to balance the two. Innovation is coming, we know that, and we know that we have to adjust, but you can't create jobs and kill jobs at the same time.
And it's so important right now in the city of Everett, because with all the new development that we have coming into the city of Everett, with when Boston Harbor coming, with other residential developments that are popping up,
Right.
many new young people moving into the city of Everett or come into the city of Everett on a regular basis that are more willing to use these types of services and willing to use these. My only question, and I'll end it at this, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
Are
giving you
either-
leeway right now.
Are either of you gentlemen willing to file an amendment in this legislative year to bring this back up and look at this, and try to look at this again? in either one of your
Counselor,
respective ones?
when did, just so I have it from the legislators, when was this just passed, 6 months ago?
This past summer was signed into law.
Okay, so I would think that they would give it time to see what the implementation of that legislation will do for an impact before anything
I
will
don't
be
think there's an
resubmitted.
appetite. I would do it, and I know Representative McGonigal would do it in a second, but I don't think, speaking to our colleagues,
As far as impact,
there's an
Senator?
appetite right now to do that. I think the people want to take a look and see how
This is
how
gonna
this
work.
works.
And the only
you
reason
know.
I asked that was because of what happened this summer in the city of Everett alone, and
Oh,
what
yeah.
we've seen after this was passed into law.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
I'll end it at that. Thank you both for coming.
You know, the biggest thing for us is public safety. So,
Sure.
you know, we know that the TNCs are not going away. That is not happening. But we have to make sure that we keep them as safe as they can be for our residents, and the decals and identifying the cars and the background checks that we have in place, and what, you know, drivers, you know, can't be convicted of, and you know, making it more safe that way. There's a lot of good things in this bill. I'm not trying to say that there aren't. There's a lot of very good things that, as Representative McGonigal said, there was nothing. Now we have something. And we have a lot to be proud of in this bill. But we can definitely go one step further to make it even better down the road. And time will tell. And, you know, we have our colleagues who are willing to give this a shot right now and see how it works. And then, you know, we'll see the next year or so where it goes from there. But
Senator, from the chair, how long of a time frame would they wait before they reintroduce?
it all depends on what's happening around us. You know, if there's
If there's
a
more
groundswell-
incidents?
Yeah, if there are more incidents, then there's a groundswell of support within the body on both branches, then you'll feel it. You'll know that the people will be starting to talk about it. But right now, there is very little talk about opening this up right now at this point.
Okay. Representative, did you want to add?
Yeah, just very brief, because I know Council Simonelli has questions, some other questions. But we think in common sense, and one of those issues was fingerprinting. I thought that was a simple issue to pass. It never made it out of the Senate, and I asked the senator tonight, because I didn't know the vote. And it got
14,
defeated
15 voted,
overwhelmingly
yeah.
for fingerprinting, and I thought that was vital that we would do that, so there's no big reason to do it right now. But, you know, I could speak to leadership, see where it is in the House, something like that I thought was critical to you know, as part of these regulations, a big part of it.
And just so you know, that the vote in both branches was overwhelmingly in favor of this bill, so, I'm not sure what the final vote was in the House, but I know it was by a wide margin. And the Senate, only 2 of us were opposed to it.
Okay.
So I was one of the 2. And I opposed it, not because I thought that it was, I opposed it because it didn't go far enough in my mind. So, the only two no's in the Senate.
Councilman Simonelli?
Right. So one of the questions we had was regarding signage and just identifying a driver as an Uber or Lyft, driver. So I assume the language is in the bill that says they have to have that at all times?
Correct. They have to have now a sticker
Okay.
on them,
Is there-
identifying them as a TNC vehicle.
And it's on them as the company to enforce that? That the
Well,
drivers have that in?
Again, it's, Department of Public Utilities.
Okay.
is the one that,
And they're
is
also,
overseeing all of it.
sure, and they're also doing the two-tiered background checks as well, right?
Correct.
What is the cadence on that? How often do they have to do another background check to see if any new violations came up on existing drivers?
Yeah, twice per year.
Twice per year?
Twice per year by the division.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the feedback system in place with local municipalities and law enforcement in the event that there is an infraction with one of the drivers? How do we make sure those people are off the road and not using their sign to go solicit rides to people?
Yeah, well, the legislation it requires the network companies, the TNCs, to maintain records of incidents.
Okay.
And to make sure that they share those records with the police officials on request when they come forward. But I know the cities and towns wanted more control over all of those things. That was a big piece of what we were trying to accomplish as well.
Sure. And so, a more high-level question, but one of the questions from Councilor Simonelli was, it's almost like the state legislature is like a dinosaur when you're in these high innovation, quick, very agile, moving industries. What can be done at the state level with the legislature to improve the speed in which regulations and bills can come into play for something like that? I mean, is that just, it's politics, it's?
No, if I may, Senator,
Yep, sure.
The industry came so fast, 10 years ago when smartphones came out. And now how many everybody has a smartphone. So now, this technology comes in for driving, for getting around, and it's overwhelming. Think about it, this 3,500 people is just in this area.
Sure.
Not across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
That's employed by Uber, not using it.
That's right, that's employed by them, so to try to keep up with the technology is overwhelming. And I think that's part of the DPU's issue, is that, look at how many drivers they're gonna have to check.
Right.
So it's a big undertaking.
Sure.
When you look at how popular it is and how fast it's growing, because it's still growing, and like the senator says, it's not just Uber.
Sure.
It's Lyft. I think Google's looking at coming in.
Yep.
They're taking a hard look at it, and
Sure.
they're very well organized, so you're gonna see it, and,
Yep.
the taxi industry,
Yep.
is in a tough situation for the next 5 years.
Sure. And as you mentioned, it's obviously a good service for many people as well. There's been studies that say it lowers drunken driving, other issues like that. So we're definitely think it's a good service. Just want to make sure the public's protected. And it sounds like you two and everyone in the city of Everett is doing their best to ensure that, that steps are taken to make sure the public's, safe. So that's all we have.
Is that it, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, that is it from us.
Yeah. Mr. O'Donnell, did you have anything to add on this?
No,
Oh, sorry.
No, just echoing the sentiments of the senator and the representative. We all have embraced the safe philosophy, and it's
You were at the
nice
same meeting as well?
Yes, and
Okay,
we
thank
just
you.
present that united front, and we all share the same concerns, particularly from a public safety standpoint.
Thank you. Councilors, anything further? I have one question from the chair. I know they're trying different cities with unmanned cars now.
And that's gonna be coming sooner than you think.
That's gonna be, they're doing it in Pittsburgh right now, I believe, and there's
They're doing
another.
it in Fort Devens. They're testing it out there.
Imagine?
Yeah.
So,
And I was
this whole issue of the fingerprinting might be solved soon. So-
And that's a great comment, and I will say this, I was fortunate to be at another hearing on driverless vehicles, the automated vehicles. And the biggest issue that came up, the problem with the vehicle is us, we, the drivers of our vehicles, because we don't obey the speed limits. We run stop signs, red lights, we're the problem, so they're still trying to figure out how we're gonna be compatible with these ATVs. So it was rather interesting. when they come up with that, but that's coming sooner than you think.
Oh, it's
You know what I
here.
mean?
Yeah, it's already
They're
here.
gonna be out there, so it'll be interesting, and that, you know, Senator, I wonder how that's gonna affect even now Uber and Lyft and all these, this other industry, so.
Yeah, I heard that, and it struck me funny that they're actually trying it in different cities now.
Yeah,
So,
I know they're doing it up in Fort Devens right now, they're testing it on the roads up there, so.
it'll be here sooner than later.
Yeah.
Pleasure on the peace, gentlemen. Excuse with customary thanks. Thank you for appearing tonight, gentlemen. Pleasure on the peace.
Mr. Chairman, I reluctantly,
Hold on a second. Is there anything additional, Counselor? Oh, okay. Counselor McLaughlin?
I would reluctantly make a motion to refer this back to sponsor. To make it back to sponsor, I would reluctantly make that motion.
Motion made and seconded to refer back to sponsor. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for appearing, gentlemen.
I know I missed something.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? You have adjourned.